This whole channel is an intervention to myself, right? That's the concept with, that's what I'm sticking with. It's an intervention to myself. We got to get back to our base, get back to our core, get back to being fun, get back to being high vibrations, get back to some type of disciplined, routine living, knowing ourselves, and working towards that purpose. So, what's going on, YouTube? We back here with another video. It's your boy Curious Cast, and I told you one of the main tenets of this channel is self-improvement and understanding ourselves. As you might have heard my video before, I struggle with some anger issues. Not a crash out or nothing like that, but I am trying to understand myself better and how I can process these feelings, get through them faster, so I can get back to work. Have better, stronger, deeper relationships, and hopefully it helps propel me in my career and whatever I do. Just I could be better with my interactions with people. All right. So the video that we have here is by Dr. Tracy Marks. Long time YouTuber. She's made, I think, a ton of videos on this subject. But Tracy Marks, she's been on YouTube for quite some time. I'll put her profile in the video, a link to the video down in the description. Make sure y'all go check her out. If y'all have any questions about any type of mental health or anything like that, she's one of the OGs. She's been around for a long time. But being that this channel is to help keep me accountable, to help keep pushing, to help keep improving, stuff that I probably took for granted on earlier in life, we're gonna dive right into it. We're gonna get some insight. We're gonna see how we could apply it to our lives and our current situation, so that we could be better tomorrow. Right? Let's get into it.
Hi.
Oh.
I'm Dr. Tracy Marks, and I make mental health education videos. Subscribe if you don't want to miss one. Today, I'm talking about what makes you get angry and how that can look. No one is without anger, but not all anger is loud and explosive. Sometimes it's disguised as other emotions. And what makes you get angry and how you express it depends on your temperament and your upbringing. Temperament refers to your inborn way of behaving, and there are different psychological models for how we define temperament, and I'm not going to talk about any of those. Instead, I'm going to give you my own thoughts about what I think contributes to how high or low is your anger threshold. And this is not scientifically validated, it's just my thoughts based on psychoanalytic theory. There are some basic characteristics that play into how slow or quick you are to be pushed to anger. And three of these factors are how flexible you are in your thinking, or formally called cognitive flexibility, how you react to change, which is related to that flexibility and more of a behavior than a way of thinking, and what is your default view of the world? Is it a safe place that only becomes unsafe if something extraordinary happens? Or is it mostly unsafe, requiring a lot of vigilance on your part to keep it safe?
Okay, so with that, as she was going through right here, this default view of the world. So this is actually pretty important to me, and I've done some sort of digging in the past before. My idea is that people have to be trained to be social. I think that we are naturally self-serving creatures. Not necessarily nice or bad or per se, but I think we are self-serving creatures. And that we need to be trained or shown a path as to why, helping our fellow neighbors and other people around us can not only be beneficial to ourselves, but to the species as a whole. And then we all get farther faster because of it, right? There are some people who just believe that humans are innately good, and the world and interactions is what brings them down. It's what chips at the heels of that grand idea, right? That we stem from a higher power, and we're imbued with this knowledge of what is good and bad. Right? I try to keep people who think that humans are innately good around me. While these people can, uh, be nice to a detriment, right? I don't think these people mean it that way. It's more so that they believe that these individuals are lost, right? That again, that they believe that people are innately good and that interactions in the world hardens them or makes them bitter, makes them lose their way. So me, and as I just said, I don't believe that. I believe humans need to be trained, which is why I try to keep people who believe that humans are innately good around me. I think it's a healthy balance for me. I get a dose of both perspectives.
That only becomes unsafe if something extraordinary happens? Or is it mostly unsafe, requiring a lot of vigilance on your part to keep it safe? These basic factors form an overall posture or attitude that affect your level of uneasiness. So, for example, let's look at two ends of the spectrum. And to make this easy for me, I'm going to say he. I'm not picking on the men. This affects women as well. On one side of the spectrum, you have the aloof posture, and aloof means having a certain level of emotional disengagement. This person is extremely flexible with accepting whatever comes his way, and in fact may not have much of a will of his own. He adjusts his desires to meet the situation, and he has very few expectations, and he's willing to change if something turns out to be different from what he wanted. And lastly, he takes for granted that the world is a safe place and people have good intentions, unless something extraordinary comes along to force that individual to do something of ill will. Now, this posture may look desirable. Who wouldn't want to be so laid back that everything rolls off your chest? But the dark side of this extreme is that this person can be so disengaged that they seem completely uninvested. They make you want to say, "Do you even care?" If we look at the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the rigid posture. This person is extremely inflexible in his thinking. He has a strong sense of what's right and what's wrong, and there's very little gray. Once he makes up his mind about something, he does not want to change or even be expected to change. He can become indignant at the thought that you would even ask such a thing. And he takes a stand on general principle. And then he operates on the premise that the world is unsafe and people by default will take advantage of you unless you put active measures in place to protect yourself. So you always need to be watching your back. This is the person who seems way too invested in things, and they make you want to say, "Hey, just relax, it's not that important." But it is important to them because of their rigid thinking. And it's easy to look at this person and think, "No way, I don't want to be like that." But the upside of this extreme is this person is engaged and they're passionate about what they're engaged in. So can you see how on the one hand you have the rigid person with an anger gauge that easily rises because they get mad about everything, contrasted with the aloof person who you need to shake and say, "Were you even awake while that was happening?" These are what the extremes can look like, but most people aren't extreme and fit somewhere in between. Where you fall on this spectrum affects how quick you are to anger and how intensely angry you become. But another important contributor to how you express your anger is what your environment was like when you were growing up. Were you in a household where people freely yelled when they were angry? Was yelling something that frightened you? Were you allowed to express your anger freely? Were you told or was it implied that you were being difficult when you got upset?
Okay, so in that part of the video, she talks about, did you grow up in a household where people yelled a lot, or was I allowed to express my emotions? Was I told when I got upset I was being difficult? Yeah, all of that, all of that. again, so, I come from a Jamaican background. My family's Jamaican. I was one of the first ones born up here. But, man, yo, I used to tell my grandma all the time. My grandma was the one who raised me. I refer to her as my mom. I used to tell my mom all the time, I'm like, yo, why you always gotta call me like you upset? Like I did something, like I'm in trouble or something. Interestingly enough, a lot of my family on the other side, they talk pretty loud too. As I went about my, life, people used to always tell me I gotta speak up. Why am I always whispering? Or, I talk pretty low, so people always had to ask me to like repeat myself in the case. So I always thought I was using an inside voice, but as she explains it, I might actually talk in a low volume because of that environment, right? Oh, the difficult thing, man. There's a quote. There's a quote. It's easier to deceive a man than it is to convince a man that he's been deceived. And I've realized people would rather have you tell them fuck them, but smile in their face and hand them flowers while you're doing it, versus you straight face just saying what you mean, no beating around the bush. I don't know what that's about. I've never been about that. I'd rather you tell it to me as it is, straight up, right? But yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up. Just a correlation that I happened to pick up on. But let's get back into the video.
Were you allowed to express your anger freely? Were you told, or was it angry you become? But another important contributor to how you express your anger is what your environment was like when you were growing up. Were you in a household where people freely yelled when they were angry? Was yelling something that frightened you? Were you allowed to express your anger freely? Were you told, or was it implied, that you were being difficult when you got upset? You may express it more actively, and we pretty much know what active anger can look like: yelling, hitting, throwing things, insulting, criticizing, making threats. But if you were raised in a way to feel that anger was something to avoid, either because you were afraid of it or you were taught not to express it, you can express your anger more passively. Passive ways to express anger are overeating, self-harm, like cutting yourself or pulling out your hair, making snide comments, being late, withholding affection, and forgetting things. It's one thing to address blow-ups with anger management, but passive anger can be destructive as well, not only to yourself, but in relationships. Just because the person with the rigid posture can get angry fast and often, it doesn't mean he expresses it with yelling. He can seethe with anger and express it by withholding affection or giving you the silent treatment. So passive anger.
Yeah, so as she talks about passive anger, I'm starting to see a lot of correlations in this video already. I must be a bit of a more rigid type, right? Being that I get angry so fast. But I am passive, so I'm not an explosive person. I'm not flipping chairs. I'm not throwing things. I'm not cursing people out. But seeing, withholding affection, silent treatment, just not being present. These are definitely some of the things I've done in the past that have had, obviously negative effects on my relationships. And, with the relationship that I felt, I could be wrong, but I felt I was closest to having a family with, it didn't help it. It didn't help it. Stifled it, shot whatever growth I had going there. And, I kind of wish I had looked into this sooner, but, it's never too late. That's what we're here for, right? Better today than we are tomorrow. Better tomorrow than we were today. All right, let's get back to the video.
Can do more damage to poison a relationship than dealing with the person who hits walls. I'll do a follow-up video on managing anger, but I wanted first to introduce you to how you get angry and what that anger can look like. And some of the factors that I discussed here about flexibility in your thinking are used to address and manage your anger. So that's why I wanted to introduce you to these concepts. So stay tuned for more. See you next time.
Yeah, so that was a good video. That was like I said, This Is What Makes You Angry by Dr. Tracy Marks. I might have to go check out the follow-up video. But I did manage to take a lot from this video. I must be the fast, rigid, angry type, as yeah, I do get angry pretty fast, but you know, I'm not explosive. I'm pretty passive. So as she just explained, silent treatment, not showing affection, I might possibly not be present, things of that nature. Man, you know, when you say it out loud, you know, who would want to be around people who do that? Not to say that, you can obviously control it, but I need some more training on this. But yeah, no, I could just thinking back, I can see how it could have affected some of my previous relationships. Right. But it's all right. It's good to look back, to do introspect sometimes. Source and diagnose the problem, right? You know, come up with a solution, attempt the solution, diagnose the results, and stay consistent. That's all we can really ask for. These days, we're gonna look back and we're gonna say, "Hey, you know, I think I've gotten a handle on this anger management thing, and I'm in a much better place. And I won't have any fear that it'll mess up my relationships or derail my career." Right? This whole channel is an intervention to myself. Right? That's the concept with. That's what I'm sticking with. It's an intervention to myself. We got to get back to our base, get back to our core, get back to being fun, get back to being high vibrations, get back to some type of disciplined, routine living, knowing ourselves and working towards that purpose. Yeah, so with that being said, that was a good video. I've gotten some more insight about myself and possibly the type of angry person that I am. Weird enough that, you know, I've looked into the stuff before. I just didn't really go in depth. So I'm glad I started the journey. Like I said, it won't happen overnight. The goal is to look back a year from now and be in a better place. Or 2 years from now, 3 years from now, however long it takes, man. But life is too short to not try. And I owe it to the people that helped me through a lot of those tough times to be better and love myself better, you know? So with that said, yo, if you liked what you saw here, if you want to come along for the journey, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your bell notifications. Like I said, I'm going to put the video for Dr. Tracy Marks in the link in the description down below. Make sure y'all go check her out if y'all are struggling with anything dealing with mental health. She has a plethora of videos going back like 5 years, man. It's a whole library. It's an archive. Definitely go check it out, man. You never know. There might be a piece of information in there that turn your life around, at least help you get started on the right path. All right, with that, YouTube, till next time. Peace.
3, 2, 1.